You are listening to Faith in the Firehouse. This is a podcast by firefighters talking about Jesus, the fire service, and life around the firehouse, taking a look at things through the lens of the gospel. We're not pastors, preachers, or Bible scholars. We're just firefighters after God's own heart, and we want to talk about it. So if you want to join in on the conversation, hit the comment section, like, subscribe, share. We appreciate it. We thank you for the feedback and encouragement. It helps us to spread the word. So if you're enjoying, share. This is episode 37. I'm your host, Daniel, and today I'm joined by Lieutenant BJ Shanks, who is the president of the Orlando Firefighters Hockey Club, which is an organization that is so much more than just a hockey club. They're doing some really great things and are truly inspiring. Their mission is to lift the fallen, and they provide financial relief to the families of those heroes who have made the ultimate sacrifice and lost their lives in the line of duty. They do this by hosting ice hockey games and tournaments, and they also provide support for first responders who are actively battling cancer, PTSD, and other job-related injuries. September 6th, they will be hosting a tribute game to honor Amanda Adams, who passed away August 16th of 2024 after a hard-fought battle with cancer. And if you're a regular listener of this podcast, you've probably heard me mention Amanda before and the impact that she's had on me in my walk. So today we're going to talk about that. BJ is going to share with us his walk with Christ, how he got in the fire service, how he ended up the president of the hockey club, and we're going to kind of talk about Amanda and reflect on her life and her unwavering faith. So hope you enjoy.
One of our big things that we need to do better is
Get a little closer to the
doing
mic.
the social media, getting the word out, what we're doing, what we're about. Like, we've always kind of been old school with it.
Mm-hmm.
And we do our tournament, we do our games, we put out the stuff to the departments, but really we're getting to a level where we need to, because I see how people in the community want to help and they want to be a part of something good. And we're limiting their ability to get on board with something good and help their first responders by not getting the word out more.
Yeah.
Same thing with your situation, and then with spreading the word of the Lord. And if you don't get it out there or you make that presence known, then it's just gonna get lost. But then there's also that, how big do you want to get? What can you control? Like we talked about before, like sometimes you have to take baby steps, because if it gets too big too fast and the wrong people get involved,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It could take it down a road you're not supposed to be going down,
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're at now with our organization. We do need to ramp up. We do need to start hiring people to help us, do things. But
It's a lot. I mean, I do a very small amount, like considering all the social media platforms out there. Like, I don't really mess with Facebook. I'm pretty much mess with YouTube, Instagram, and then Spotify. And like Spotify will send it out to the link will send it out to the other podcast platforms. But there's like, TikTok, like some people are just on Facebook, or shoot, I don't even know all the other platforms anymore. So you could spend a lot of time, and I'm learning as this is growing to just do what I can as I do. And there's little systems along the way that'll help you, like link YouTube. Like I said, there's a link for Spotify to all the podcasts. And now when I do like little short clips and I make them, there's a program that sends them out to all your different media accounts. So
yeah, I've been seeing those.
Yeah.
Like I was doing the search, I'd see some of those and I'm like, well, where's the whole content of it? And most of that's on your YouTube.
Yeah.
Where you can watch the full length.
Yeah. But that's a really good point, because it's hard too. Like, I want people to be able to like click right on that and go to the whole episode, because that's the whole point.
Right.
But then I need another app that will like send a link. That's why if you see people put in there like comment link, and they'll send you, there's an app that word triggers them to send a link to, which was like a huge help for the last episode I put out, because it was like, I can't respond to all of them in time. So
all right. Yeah, and you need a network, man. It's I'm happy that I have a board of people who everybody kind of, and it's all firefighters, but everybody kind of has their niche. You know what I mean? Like, I'm the talker. I'm the guy who does stuff like this, you know? And then I got McPherson, who the guy pretty much put together a business plan in 2 days, like
Wow.
in an SOP style, you know what I mean? And he gets tunneled into that. And then I got Dennis, who, you know, wrangles at the team, man. Like, he's the heart of the team. Like guys look at Dennis Pinkman in there, you know, and he's been on the organization a lot longer than me, you know. And then we got younger guys, or guys that are newer to the boards, like Phil Graziani, man. He's been killing it and really helping us, you know. And he's pretty much runs the, you know, he runs the tournament and helps organize the games and stuff. So it's like, you know. And then Asher's, you know, captain on the A, and he kind of handles the merchandise, and you know, that's why he's fashion, because he's the fashion guy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's been really, it's really cool, man. Like, when you start getting the network of your inside circle,
Yeah.
and that's what, and I don't know if you have that already or if you guys are developing that, but that inside circle, man, it's like,
Yeah.
the guys just have so many hidden talents.
Yeah. It's developing. It's developing for us in OFD and like our Bible study, but also it's starting to develop in a bigger inner circle throughout the fire service, because there's a lot of strong believers out there who are on fire for Christ and doing things like this. And just like you were saying, everyone has their specialty.
Right.
Like, I feel like there's some other podcasts that have their own little flavor, or there's other guys who will do Instagram pages with like motivational quotes and scripture and stuff like that, and kind of build up that stuff. And then, but together, all these guys have been, like I said, building that network. So when somebody like Dane just went through what he went through, we were able to put it out to all these people and pray for them. Because I think it's, you know, and I know you're a strong believer as well, like those prayers matter. And that's something that we want to continue to build. And I'm really thankful for the conversation we had the other day, because it was really motivating for me to step forward and continue to build. Because there is a point where it's like, we got to start getting organized. And we have some of those pieces, like Lieutenant Polk, Freddie Polk, who's been on here a few times. Obviously, you know him.
Oh, love Freddie, man.
Yeah,
He's my guy.
he's like our shepherd for the Bible study group. Like,
Yeah.
he's he's a lot more behind the scenes than on this podcast, but it's because of him that this thing is here and continues to move forward. Like, he's such a big piece of it. And there's several other guys that have their skills.
Yeah. And you know, the thing, I mean, being in the fire service now, I'm going on my 26th year, you know, and I've been on 4 different departments, you know, Orlando being where I finally landed and stayed. And this is the first time I've ever witnessed this type of faith within the fire service, and guys willing to, you know, we talk about it, you know, like obviously we all have our really close Christian friends that have always been there for us. You know, Sean Wolford is one of mine, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just to see that avenue now, like, I commend you and the group and Freddie and, you know, Buddy and all the guys that are part of that, because, you know, it's important to have the group, but it's also important to walk the walk. It's important to study it, to read it, and that's what I need to be better at. Like, you know, I want to get into the Bible studies with you guys, and, you know, I haven't been able to make many of them. You know, I think I went to the first one, which was only a couple, but that's where you got to prioritize life and God in your life.
Yeah.
You know, and make those things important, because, like, we teach our kids, like I tell my kids all the time, only so many hours in a day. So if you want this to be successful, or you want your relationship with God to be successful, or you want your relationship, or you want the hockey club to be successful, you have to dedicate time to that. Your career, you know, and it starts to get where you're like, I've only got so many hours in a day.
Yeah.
But it can't, you know, you gotta prioritize.
Have you ever seen that demonstration? I've seen pastors do this. It's an awesome illustration where they'll take a jar with a bunch of different size rocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put in all the small stuff first, like the sand, and then you put in the slightly bigger rocks and a little bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to put the big rock in at the top and it doesn't fit.
Right.
Now, if that big rock is Jesus, you put that in first.
Right.
Then you start filling in the small rocks around it. It fits perfectly. It's such an awesome illustration.
And it's true to life, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you want to be successful on that lieutenant's test, how many hours are you putting in? You
Mhm.
got to, and now you've got to take away from something else in that 24 hours,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's so true. Like we all want to be great at everything,
Yeah.
but sometimes you have to delegate things, especially when you're in a situation, where you have an organization and it's like you can't do it all. The biggest destruction of an organization is micromanagement, right? And it's because you've only got 24 hours. You can't do it.
Right.
And we've learned at the hockey club and our board, like, we call it staying in your lane. My lane's not putting together the business plan and all that. Like, this is my lane, getting the word out, talking, being, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And you got to know your lane,
Yeah.
And like you've talked before on the podcast, it's just the organization, the nice thing about your organization is everyone is faith-based. But our organization, not everyone is. Most of the guys on the board, have a belief in God. But it's just like the Firehouse. You're going to have people from all over.
Mhm.
And the funny thing about our club is, like, we're the guys that were like, oh, no one else will take you. We'll take you. You know what I mean? And we've created some really good soldiers in that aspect, because there's guys that didn't belong anywhere else or didn't feel like they belong, and they joined the club and like, man, this is a great group of people that are doing the right thing.
Isn't that awesome when you give somebody a chance that, like you said, maybe didn't feel like they belong somewhere else? And sometimes we can be, just people can get together and they start to make their opinions about people, and then they never get a chance.
Yeah.
And they never find their niche. And they can be a huge help. And I'm a firm believer that in life in general, but especially in the fire service, I'm sure a hockey team's no different. Like, each person has God-given qualities and talents that will fit.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't put them out there otherwise,
Absolutely, man. And it's I guess as we age and we get older and you start looking back and what the things that put you there, sometimes it's just a story that you could have never imagined. You never would imagine me being the president of this organization. It was all because of a friendship that transpired into me wanting to do good, and wanting to help, wanting to volunteer. And, and then it got to the point where it was like, hey, we need somebody to step up and take over this thing or it's going to fall. And it's, we're just going to go back playing hockey, but not having a mission.
Yeah.
That's
what I think is really awesome about what could be just a bunch of guys playing hockey, which is fun. The fellowship is awesome, but your organization has turned into so much more. Yeah. And I realized that after talking to you, that other shift. Before we get too far, because we've already started off good, why don't we introduce you, Lieutenant BJ Shanks, the Orlando Fire Department, and you are the president of the Orlando Firefighter Hockey Club, whose mission it is to lift the fallen. And we're here today to honor the memory of Amanda Adams.
So, yeah. Yes. Well, you want to start with the prayer? Start us with the prayer?
Yeah. Thank you.
Dear Lord, I want to thank you for today. I want to thank you for the friendship that I have with Danny. I want to thank you for what the doors you've opened up for us in our careers and our lives, and put us on a path to be able to do good for people, not always within the fire station. We have built something, and Danny has, and I have, where and it's the group of people that are around us, and you have glorified us to be able to help the community, and we've been fortunate to. I was kind of placed in an organization, I feel, by you to help that organization to get it where it is today. And I just want to take a minute to thank you for that leadership in that direction. But I also want to take a minute to thank you for our struggles and our victories, and I want to pray for those first responders and all individuals right now that are struggling and maybe struggling and maybe looking for a source of strength. And I just want to thank you for always being there for us and reminding us as believers that we can always crawl under your wing and you'll carry us and we can carry our courage and knowing that you're always going to be there for us. And I want to pray specifically for a couple of our brothers. That Dane Stewart right now is healing from his medical situation, and I just want to just remember and pray for them, and also for the families of the loved ones that are no longer here, like Amanda's family and Jeff's family and Horn's family. For those members that are no longer here, but their families are still here, dear Lord, I want you to give them strength to keep going on in life and keep knowing that you're there to carry them, and they have the hope that they know that one day they'll reconvene in heaven with their loved ones.
Yes.
Um, just guide our talk today, and let your will be done. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Beautiful prayer, man.
Oh,
Powerful.
I'm always from the hip with interviews, or I don't really prepare a whole lot because as all the guys on the board will tell you, I can be long-winded. So if I get off on a tangent or long-winded, just give me the nod or the wink, and we'll get back to our platform of our agenda.
No, that was great.
So
That was great. Yeah, if you like we talked about earlier, we're here to talk about Amanda and honor her memory, but I've really enjoyed hearing your story. We've worked alongside each other for years now, but I never really got to hear that side of you, and that's kind of what we aim to do here is hear the story of the faith and what made the man who you are. So before we get into Amanda, would you mind sharing maybe your walk with the Lord, how you got into the fire service, maybe anything that you feel led to share?
absolutely. So you hear a lot of firefighters say, "Oh, my dad, my uncle, my grandpa was a fireman." No one in my family prior to me, of my knowledge, was ever in the fire service. My mother was a nurse. My father was an electrician. When I was growing up, my mom used to joke because I lived near Station 41. The fire truck would go by daily, and she thinks that it was instilled in my brain to be a firefighter because I heard that fire truck so much. It was funny, but yeah, I never had that desire. It was just kind of something, and I feel like looking back now, it was God steered me in that direction. Um, so growing up, I did have a Catholic background. I went to St. Charles when I was a little guy, and then I always lived in College Park, which is where I'm stationed now. And my, I remember my grandmother, on my mom's side, she was very, very Catholic, and then my grandfather was more rough around the edges. They come from a town in Michigan that was a shipping town called St. Clair, and my mom told me, my grandparents met. He came into the bank, and so you had the Catholic girl and the rough around the edges seaman, that was out on a boat, and so it was kind of cool little story. But so growing up, I had that base and that knowledge of studying and going and being raised. Couple first 2 years, I had nuns as teachers, so it was that base was there. And then growing up, I got I didn't go to St. Charles throughout my whole elementary school, but went to Lee Middle and Killarney and other schools there, and met some really great people. That's where I met Amanda Adams. She was actually friends with my sister in middle
Oh,
school,
wow.
and
You guys go. I didn't realize you guys went that
way
far
back,
back. Yeah.
yeah. So Amanda and I have always called her, always called her sis, because we went back so far. Um, But anyway, back to what got me into the fire service. When I graduated high school, I wasn't, I've always been pretty rough around the edges growing up and into the fire service. And, you know, as my first major experience in life was when my father got sick. Um, I graduated I was living with him. Actually, my mom had kicked me out because I was, not doing well and drinking and doing stuff I shouldn't have right out of high school. And she made me move in with him. He lived in a trailer park over right by the Union Hall on OBT. And ever since then, I'm like, I'm never living in a trailer ever again in my life just because of that memories and that time. But it was also a bad time because my father got sick. He worked out at Disney. He went in, they were working on a gang box. Long story short, it was energized. The electricity went through one arm and out the other.
Oh, wow.
And that back then, that was, 30 years ago, there was no definitive diagnosis of a mechanical or electrical injury causing Lou Gehrig's disease. So they said, it was hereditary. And he moved back up to Michigan where my grandma and grandpa were to live with them. And I moved up there as well to help take care of him. And I watched my father go from being the guy that I looked up to my whole life, the strong man, to he could just hang his hands. He never lost his legs. If you know the history of Lou Gehrig's or the medical disease, it usually starts kind of low and it atrophies your muscles, and then everything slowly dwindles until you die. You
Wow.
know, and but with him, it was always from his waist up because of the electrical injury traveling
Wow.
through his arms.
And there's like evidence now that 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 can
Yes.
be what caused it.
Yeah, it took about 20 years, but that was the evidence. And so my parents' agreement when they got divorced, my mom paid for my daughter or my sister's schooling for college. My father's supposed to pay for mine. He didn't set up Florida prepaid or anything like that. So with there obviously was a lawsuit with that, but there was no diagnosis that said, hey, this is the definitive. So basically, after he passed, I didn't have any means to go to school. And when I came back to Florida, I moved back here. I applied for Pell Grants, and I have a good friend of mine, Sean, who's always been, we've known each other since high school, and we've always had that religious, godly friendship. And he was like, "Man, you were, the captain of the wrestling team. You love team sports. You played football. Like he was in the fire service already. He's like, I think this would be a great fit for you." So I applied and I got the Pell Grant to go to EMT school at Valencia. And my first ride was, with Farrenhorn and, Walt Lewis at Station One back in the day, and,
Wow.
um, and I fell in love with it, from the very first call. And I'm like, yeah, this is what I need to do. And I had no, you know, pre notion of what the fire service was. And, to this day, I'm just so thankful for having the career I've had and being blessed with what I have been given and being able to help people. And I think helping my father and going through that is what changed my mentality from, hey, I'm not going to go look for a career where I can make a bunch of money. I want a career that I can make a difference. And that's what pushed me there, So I feel like that was 100% God's move. So, um, and then it took me a while to get to Orlando. My first job was at a Popka Fire. I was volunteer over there, for maybe a month, and then they hired me. And then I went to medic school in about 99, 01. Oh, when I went to medic school, and then that's when, 9/11 happened, and that was a huge impact on the fire service. That was probably the greatest impact as far as fatalities ever, for the U.S. for fire service, and so that was a pretty big impact. And I went to Ocoee, and after that, and then tested for Orlando and Reedy Creek. Got hired there, so I
Yeah.
had three different departments before I finally got to Orlando, which is where I wanted to be because I grew up there, and
Yeah.
it's where I always wanted, desired to be. And I always wanted to be a lieutenant on a fire engine, and that's where I'm at now.
That's
You know
awesome.
what I mean? Um, so as far as like getting into the hockey organization, when I was a fireman at Orlando, we had a Lieutenant Lawrence Spence, he was on Tower 9, and I became friends with him, and I got assigned to Tower 9, and I never even though my family was from Michigan and I would spend some winters in Michigan during the winter breaks, and we would ice skate on the ponds and stuff, but I never played organized hockey.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting how here in Orlando, Florida, like the hockey team it's a big deal. Like you guys are really good. You got a big organization with multiple teams. Like growing up in Florida, I knew some kids who played like club hockey, but it's not like up north, I'm sure, where
Oh,
it's
they breathe it. Like when these teams
yeah.
come down from up north, like we got teams that come down for our tournament, and we'll talk about that. You know, from as far up as Canada, and these guys like they're born with skates on. So
Yeah.
for a guy like me who didn't start skating till or playing till I was like 35,
Oh wow.
I'll never be what these guys
Yeah.
are or where they're at. But that's okay because like the cool thing about our organization is we'll take it no matter what your level is. And because we realize how important it is for the guys and girls to have an outlet, a healthy alternative to relieve some job related stress. So back to to lift the fallen, the introduction, that's our mission statement, because it encompasses everything that we do. We're not just raising money for, the families of the fallen or the lost or that died in line of duty. We give money to help financially for people that are going through tough situations. We actually did a charity game for Amanda a few years back when she was fighting her cancer to help her. And but the biggest, coolest thing of the organization is the members and the guys and the girls that are part of the organization that bring their own special, talent and personalities and they're workhorses, man. They love what we do and they have bought into the mission and they know what we're about and they want to be a part of that. It's part of something good, so it gives them a healthy alternative and in a way to help outside of the just everyday working at the station, if you will.
So you did the tournament for her back when she was in treatment, and now you have another one coming up. What's the date on that?
So September 6th, we're gonna do. So the way we run we have a tournament every year in January, and if any team comes that has lost someone and they would like us to honor them, we do a really cool tribute that we pretty much made ourselves. Like I've never seen any other hockey organization, with the exception of maybe FDNY, when they do before they do their big game, they'll march the honor guard and the pipes and drums out, and they'll recognize on the screen. But what we do is we'll at this game we'll come out and we'll have the teams line up, and then we have the pipes and drums and the honor guard, and we'll read about Amanda and about her life. And we try and keep it limited, because we can't be up there all day. But it's all about honoring that individual. And it's really therapeutic for the families too, because they can be a part of something. And it's not, Amanda on the 16th of this month, it'll be 1 year since she passed. So we try and do it to where it's far enough out to where the family has had time to grieve, and then hopefully 6, 8 months down, it's an opportunity for them to come back and remember that, one, their member's not forgotten. That's something that
Yeah.
a lot of fear of family members in the fire service when they lose somebody is that, hey, once they're gone, nobody's going to remember who they were. Nobody's going to, tribute them or talk about them. And that's why it's so important for them to get recognition,
Yeah.
And we've had this discussion with, Huggins'
Yeah.
mom, Mary, about getting him on the wall for the IFF memorial, because it's it's very important to us who are still here that they recognize that, for what they gave, you know.
Yeah.
And same with Amanda. So at that game, this is our way. This is our special way how the hockey club recognizes those individuals, and it gives the people like yourself and the firefighters like yourself who worked with those individuals to get back with that crew. Like you guys probably aren't even all in the same crew anymore, but at that game, you guys will probably all
Right.
be there,
Yeah.
and you'll be able to get back. And there's therapy in that. There's therapy in checking in, 6, 8, a year down the road. So
Yeah.
that's what we try and that's kind of like we're just trying to build the platform to have a
Yeah.
good time. It's still a hockey game. We're still going to be out there
Yeah.
hitting and having fun, but there's a lot more to it than just the hockey.
Yeah. It seems like a great way to move forward. Because like you think when you have a memorial, like you said, there's gonna be a lot of emotions with everyone coming together, and that's all really good. It's good to stay connected. It's good to reconnect, and it's good to honor their memories. But then you go and you put that energy into a hockey game, and it's like, let's just play, you know. And I feel like I haven't been there for one of your memorial tournaments. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to make it. Hopefully, I'll be able to make it for Amanda's, but but I could imagine that it just releases that energy.
I did want to add into, how we haven't always had the mission to lift the fallen. We did we started in 98. Lauren Spence started the organization in 98. And we did a lot for MDA back then. Remember, we used to fill the booth
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff. Well, our tournament, a lot of the proceeds and the donations would go towards those organizations. But then, when I became involved about 10 years ago, and then took over about 7 years ago, it kind of dawned on us, like, we're our own 501c3. Why are we giving money to other 501c3s when we can help do our own mission? We don't have to, so that's why and coincidentally, another God thing, I feel like, the first year that I took over the tournament, two members from a Canadian team called Fredericton, two officers got killed point blank range in their patrol cars in Canada, which was never heard. This was, in 2018, so this was never heard of
Yeah.
up there.
They even have
Canada.
guns up there?
Yeah, that doesn't happen in Canada, right?
Wow.
So I'm signing up teams, and I see that Fredericton didn't sign up, and they had never missed a tournament. And I called their captain, Scott, and he's like, yeah, man, we're a small department, so we're like working around, picking up shifts to cover for these two, and we're working on, and then just dawned on me. I started talking with him, and I said, Scott, I'm going to be honest with you. This is something you guys have done every year. Your officers need this. Your officers need to get back to being on the ice. Like, this is part of the therapy of grieving and moving forward and figure out a life without those individuals here anymore.
Yeah.
You're not going to ever forget them, but you got to learn how to keep carrying on, and getting back on the ice is very important. And I said, you know what, Scott, if you guys can get here, don't worry about the entry fee. We got you guys. We just want you here. And I went back to the board and we talked about it, and I'm like, let's do something for these individuals. Let's change our mission, to help firefighters and police officers just like this. And that's what we did. And so back to our on ice tribute. This is the first one I ever did, right? And I actually walk out there on the ice, and I'm in, I didn't know if I should wear a suit or if I should wear my Class A. And the guy that used to live stream it, he's like, you got to wear your Class A. He was from up north, Philly.
Yeah.
You got to wear the Class A, man. You got to wear the Class A. So I put the Class A on. I go out there, and I'm reading about their officers who I don't know. So it's a lot easier when you're reading a eulogy or something about someone you don't know.
Yeah.
But before the game, I went in and briefed the teams, and it's like dead silence in the locker room, which is like never. And when they're out on the ice and I'm reading the eulogy, and then we go into the moment of silence, and I kind of look up and I see tears coming down these big guys' faces, and that's when I realized there's a mission here. There's something we need to do here, for all these guys and girls, But that's why we changed our mission. That's why we do what we do now. And that lifting and falling encompasses helping the family. So after the game's over and after the tournament's over, we pay all the bills, because we got to pay for the ice and pay for all the, extras. And when all the bills are paid, we look at how much is left, and then we cut checks to the family members, and we'll give them to the captains of the teams, and they take it back home and they hand it to the wives and they hand it to the spouses.
That is such a blessing for these families. I've realized this through helping, trying to put the word out for Dane and, other people who have lost loved ones, like, especially when they die prematurely or, of something that they weren't expected. I mean, I don't care how prepared you think you are for death. It's tough. and then just to have that hope, like putting together, I'm not sure who did the meal train for Dane, but I was just talking to Virginia, Dane's wife, and like what an unbelievable blessing it is to them just to not have to worry about food or, you know, these little things here and there. And man, I think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and it's motivated me to do more with Faith in the Firehouse. You know, because I realize there is potential, and like we were talking about earlier, like building that network. If everyone pitches in just a little bit, you know, for me, when stuff like this comes up, I try to help and donate everywhere I can. And it's like, all right, what can I give up eating out lunch this week once just to make an impact on this person, you know, or can I, you know, depending on whatever the cause is. But
Right.
you know what I mean? Like when you put it like that, it's like, this is a small sacrifice that would make such a big impact for these families to be able to donate or, you know, whatever.
And I think that's what's, you know, we have the brotherhood, the sisterhood, you know, like we're close within the fire service as it is. But I think a lot of that, you look at situations like that, and I'm, you know, after all these years of doing the tributes and seeing the families and having relationships with the families, you know, one on one, and inviting them to games. I send out a text before Amanda's game. I'll send out a text the week before to all the family members that have lost that we've done tributes for. You know what I mean? And they just appreciate that text.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't forgotten me.
Yeah.
You know, my husband died 10 years ago and you haven't forgotten
Wow.
me. And it's so important for us to do that and to take time out to do that. And I've heard you guys talk about it on your podcast about, like, if you know, the Holy Spirit's telling you to text this person.
Yeah.
That's how God works, right? That's how
Yeah.
he's telling you to do it. So don't deny that, you
Yeah.
know? And the same thing, you know, with, and that's what's cool about where you guys are at and where you're going, man. And, you know, the hockey club, like, and I'm sure when long after I'm gone, the guys after me are going to take it 10 times fold where I was, you know, and they've already have, you know, guys come in like Phil and guys, and they just, and the same thing Lauren says, man, you took it to a whole nother level. And then I'm like, these guys are taking it to a whole nother level beside where I was, where I could ever take it.
That's
So
awesome.
that's the beauty of, you know, God's always going to create soldiers, put soldiers out there to do his good, to do his will, you know. Sometimes you just got to stop talking long enough to listen
Right.
and seek your heart of where it's telling you to go.
Yeah. And if God's blessed it, God's ordained it, he put it together, he's going to make sure it goes forth and it continues to go, you know. And that's what I've found with doing this. And I'm sure, you know, just from your story, I have no doubt God put you where you are for that reason. And it's, you know, there's this mentality in the worldly ways that you got to grind and you got to make sure all this stuff is like in order, or like you create your own future, your own destiny and all this. And man, sometimes I feel like you can try to do all that all you want, and it's, you know, it's just not going to happen. Or I don't know. For me, at least this path, since I've literally like let Jesus take the wheel and let him, everything's just like falling in line, you know, like all I have to do is keep walking it out, just keep saying yes,
Right.
you know.
In life, we're never going to be, no matter if you're in, you know, I've heard it on your podcast and you hear it from every preacher. It's like, you're not immune to hardships. You know what I mean? Actually, your life, if you're not, and it's funny because when I look back on a lot of my life, when I wasn't living the way I should or doing the things I should do, or, you know, treating people the way I should treat people, is when I lost a lot, you know, and
Yeah.
lost people that I loved and was in very hard times. And that always brought me back to God. So you mad about having hard times in your life, but you don't have a relationship with him every day. But he knows he wants a relationship with you. So he's going to bring you whatever it takes to get a relationship with you is what he's going to do. So, you know, and that's my friend Sean said a long time ago. He's like, you know, he was in a study once and the preacher said that. He's like, you know, raise your hand if you've had struggles. You know, everybody raise their hand. Now put your hand down if, you know, you didn't have struggles and you were still in the word and still in God. And, you know, a few people put their hands down, but most of them hands were up, and they're like, and now leave your hand up if when you were in your struggles, you were the closest with God. And everybody leaves their hand up. And it's like, and now you wonder why
Yeah.
you struggle.
Yeah.
You know, you wonder why you struggle because
Yeah.
he wants a relationship with you.
And the Lord is close to the brokenhearted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that I've been on this continual journey of like, you start climbing or feel like things are going right. And I'm like, I'm not gonna let that affect my relationship with the Lord, but inevitably life will get in the way. And not that I stop reading, like you said, you keep reading, you keep praying, but like that level of intimacy with God, I have yet to be able to attain unless I'm facing something that is like really hard. I don't,
Right. And the uncomfortable, like
yeah,
I've always been decent at speaking or talking, but this club and the organization thrusted me into a spot where like I'm on the news. I'm, out on the ice saying tributes and trying to hold it together and not, I lost it. The
yeah,
last, we did the one we did for Jeff, like I'm reading it like I lost it because I'm human, right? We're human.
yeah,
We're not robots. And there was a scary time in my life when I was very busy at work and I was on Rescue One and I was going through my divorce where I didn't feel anything, man. And I didn't cry and I didn't have emotion and I was just numb. And thank God, you know, here my Christian friend John agrees to do a mutual so I can get out of station one and go to station three and be around guys, that were faith based and, not that the other guys weren't, but, I needed that break and I needed
yeah,
to retract and I was in a really tough time and when I needed it most, he provided. He took me under his wing, just like in Psalms
yeah.
91, you know.
So you had somebody mutual with you from station 3 to station 1.
It ended up where he ended up going to 12
Okay. So
and the guy
like,
from 12 wanted to be at 1. And, back then we didn't have the bid.
yeah,
So it was a phone call. And, the Chiefs back then, they liked me. You know what I mean? And because if they didn't like you, you know how it was.
yeah,
Sometimes your career wouldn't go as well as it should. But I was always, I never shied away from busy units. And I always,
yeah,
worked hard. And heck, when they called me to go to Rescue One, they just sent me to 2. And I go, well, Chief, I don't want the guys at 2 to think that I'm wimping out and going to 1, because 2 was the busiest firehouse in the city at the time.
it
The
was one of the
rescue,
busiest in the country
right?
back then.
And he goes, "Well, I need you on Rescue One." And I go, "Well, if you need me on Rescue One and the city needs me on Rescue One, Chief, it sounds like I'm going to Rescue One."
Mhm.
And that's just the way I was always, raised to be. You
Yeah,
tell me to do it, I'm gonna go do it. I'm not
yeah,
gonna worry about it. But
It-
that was part of the path, right?
yeah.
Like,
It's just funny how like, I'm like joking that, it's almost like somebody had to give him a direct revelation from God. Like, you need to do this swap because like for those outside, like station 3 is very chill. It's a great place to work. But station 1, and I love station 1. I was there a long time. I know you were too. Same thing with station 2, but they're busy.
oh
Like,
yeah.
you're gonna work, and it's just
It
so
and it was more with me. It was, being up all night, and then I was recently single and with my kids every day that I'm not
yeah,
working.
and you're
So I
probably
want to be able
exhausted.
to be a active parent and
Yeah,
obviously watch my children and not be falling asleep on the couch. And so it was kind of a lot of that,
yeah,
and it was, thank God for him, for him doing that for me, my friend,
yeah.
and it and it changed,
And it worked out for him too, right?
Yeah, and then the funny part is a few years later we asked the same chief, like, okay, I'm good now. You send me wherever you want, just give him his spot back. And next thing I know, he's at 3 with me, and we're working together at 3. And I'm like, and the chief was like, well, yeah, he's at 3 now. So it was really cool that
It's
chief
awesome.
did that for us, and then we got an opportunity to work together and and that was one of our only time in our career of him and I, after all this story of how he got me in there, like we actually finally were on the same shift, the same crew, and there's great awesomeness in that too.
Yeah. So now's maybe a good time to talk a bit more about Amanda. Um, I want to start by reading Psalm 91, which was her favorite passage. This is Psalms chapter 91. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. Surely he will save you from the fowler's snare and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness will be your shield and rampart. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in the darkness, nor the plague that destroys at midday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only observe with your eyes and see the punishment of the wicked. If you say, "The Lord is my refuge," and you make the Most High your dwelling, no harm will overtake you, no disaster will come near your tent, for he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. They will lift you up in their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra. You will trample the great lion and the serpent. Because he loves me, says the Lord, I will rescue him. I will protect him, for he acknowledges my name. He will call on me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. And that's such a beautiful passage.
It is. And I know we talked about, Amanda's strength with her battle with cancer. She was strong in her faith the whole time. It was awe-inspiring to me, personally, to see this, person that I've known since middle school stay strong in faith, even in the hardest of times, in the rockiest of times. And even towards the end, she never gave up hope. She wanted to be on this earth because, her daughter, her husband, her family. But I think there was no doubt where she was going. And she didn't fear because of that. She feared for the ones left behind. She feared for her daughter, her husband, crew. But she trusted that God would provide for them. Just like this passage is saying. And you reading this and us talking about it now, like, what a great passage for someone, for all of us, one, but definitely for someone who's going through a struggle, right? And being able to go back and look upon, just her messages on Facebook, because she was very vocal about her belief, and right down to, you may not agree with me, and it's okay. I still love you, just like Jesus loves us, And I think that's what's one of the reasons why I definitely wanted to be here today, is because I think part of Amanda's legacy is our faith and us doing that for others too.
This podcast this podcast is a part of her legacy, because this wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. And it is really important for me, just like the families of all these people you mentioned, that her memory never get forgotten. And it is a testimony to what might seem like how something so small can make such a large impact. Because she posted a video, and I've shared this before, but she posted a video on Facebook, and we'll watch it here in a minute. And she probably had no idea who it was going to reach, just that it was going to reach someone. And at that time, my wife had had a stroke. Again, I've shared this stuff. And like firemen, when stuff like this happens, we kind of kick into action, right? It's like, all right, what hospital are we going to? What treatment are we going to get? All right, now we got to see doctors. We're trying to diagnose what's going on. And it's one thing after another, just boom, 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 boom. All right, now we're getting ready to get discharged. We got to find a specialist for a CADASIL specialist. That's the condition that my wife has. Mm-hmm. Where's she going to recover? Physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, all this stuff. And then the dust settles when we get home from the hospital. And I'm laying there in bed with my wife, who at this time could not speak. She was very weak. It was a very dire situation. and the reality of that situation set in. And I'm laying in bed next to her, just scrolling through Facebook, and I come across this video. And I'm thinking to myself, like, we hear things around the fire department, we the word got out that she had cancer, and I was like watching her with a big smile on her face, praising Jesus. And I think she was preparing for a half marathon or something. And I'm like, didn't she just find out she had like terminal cancer? Like, I thought the diagnosis was really not good. And, and it just, as someone who didn't have faith at that time, I was kind of on the path to seeking, but I didn't understand surrender. I didn't understand how big and powerful God is. I didn't understand his love, and I didn't understand the hope that comes with the gospel. And here she is, like, laying out the gospel. And honestly, at the time, I didn't really understand all of what she was talking about, but I went back and watched it yesterday. I'm like, this is such a perfect and complete version of the gospel. Like, she lays it all out. And it's been something that I wanted to start doing in every episode, is share. Make sure I'm sharing the gospel. So we'll let her do it in this episode. But that video, like, I watched that and I said, you know what? She has this hope, and I didn't understand it. I didn't understand the peace that surpasses all understanding that comes with it. But I'm like, there's something to this. And I went and grabbed my Bible and I started reading with my wife. And from then on, man, the days that I was praying and the days I was reading the Bible, it was hope. It was like, all right, Susan's going to recover. We're going to get through this. She's going to be, we had been married, but we hadn't actually had our ceremony yet. I was like, she's going to be walking down the aisle in 3 months. Like, this is happening. It was, against all odds. I don't care. We're going to do it. And there were days where I fell off, and those days despair came back in and the hope dissipated. And that was a back and forth for me until I had my full, complete surrender about like 9 or 10 months later. So she is an absolutely pivotal piece of the puzzle for for my walk and my journey. And I do believe, like, this wouldn't be here. I don't know where I would be. I don't know if maybe God would have tried to reach me some other way. I don't know. But the way it played out, that is such a pivotal piece of my story, and for me and my wife and everyone else that this podcast touches, and whoever it inspires, and however that ripple effect goes on. And it's it was a 7-minute video that changed my life.
And that's the amazing part about that legacy, right? Like, that's your personal story with how that touched you. And I have my story, how it touched me. And think about all the people that's touched,
Yeah.
And all Amanda was amazing about having a personal relationship with everyone that she ever knew, a one-on-one. It wasn't a firehouse table. I know you because of the table. She was very adamant about, having the one-on-one relationship with everyone. And that was the God in her. And that was how God came out of her, And she was, like, you talked to her husband, Chris. And that's another thing about this whole story that's, that I want to recognize is, Chris Adams, her husband, plays for our organization. He's our goalie on a low level, like I am, a D level skaters. He's in net. And one of the reasons why we waited so long to have the game is because I wanted to make sure Chris was ready to be in net, not in a hockey sense, but I didn't want to have this game until he was ready to have this game, because this game is for Amanda, but it's for the family.
Yeah.
Him being a huge part of that, And I told him month after she passed, like, you tell me when you're ready, because we're not gonna do this game till you're ready. Because as much as we want to help everybody else, man, Chris means so much to our organization. You know what I mean? And as a friend to me, personal friend to me. And that's why this game is so important to honor Amanda, but also, to be there for Chris, and Amanda's family is going to be there, and just to give them that love, and that's the same way Amanda was. She would be at all of our games and hugging those families, and that was her love, so ultimately, God gave her that, and God gives us that, and that's what we need to share, and that's what we need to keep spreading and doing, you know. So yeah, but maybe we let everybody watch who Amanda was, and
Yeah. I was really happy to hear that Chris is going to be playing with you guys. And I don't, me and Chris actually were assigned together, but it was years ago when I first started, so I haven't really been in touch with him.
it's funny as hockey players, we always, as firefighters, we're always really competitive, right? And in hockey, Chris and I are very competitive. He doesn't mind as much if anybody else scores on him, but he hates it when I score on him. You know what I mean? So in practice, we're constantly going at each other, and when I make one, I'm like, yeah, how you like that? And then when he stops one, he'll throw the puck back at me. And so it's actually a really cool friendship that we have. And obviously, just like Amanda was very, faith-based, so is Chris, and I know that's his faith has helped him throughout this struggle as well, and his friendships, and get back in that locker room. And, we've had those conversations. And so, anyone who's going through that struggle, try and reach and find those good-hearted people that are your network and your inner circle that can help you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's, so impactful. Like we were talking about earlier, like it's a huge blessing to the family to help with finances. But also I know that just the amount of people, Dane and Virginia, that reached out, like that's overwhelming. That was overwhelming for me. And that gives me like hope and fills me up. And like, it's, you can't underestimate, like we talked about, send that message, say those prayers, share with them. So let me, let's hear from Amanda. October 14th of 2023.
Good morning. So I'm out doing my morning run, and I'm sorry this is a little shaky, but I just felt led by God to come in and kind of share a little bit. So I shared some of the story of what's going on with the cancer last night, but I feel a little bit more led to share more upon my faith for those who are out there reading my story, because I just feel like some people embrace it, others reject it, and others are neutral, in the middle somewhere. And I just wanted to come on and say that I truly do love each and every one of you. And like one of my spiritual songs I run to by Kidley says, I found Jesus, I found love, I found reasons I can trust. And I just want to make very clear that in healing spiritually, my heart aligns with God's. I judge none of you. It is not mine to judge, first off, but I also judge absolutely none of you. Each and every one of us is a child of God, and He longs for each and every one of us to come home. He also allows free will and choice, and I embrace your free will and choice myself. I will always be here to be a guide to lead you to God and His love and what Jesus has done for us, should you ever choose to want to discuss that with me. But if you don't, I respect that. I respect that 100%. And let me show you how good God is right now. Because I'm running later in the day, and usually later in the day, these beautiful babies are not out. And because I am following what He says, they are here and there. Look at that beautiful male. This is God at His finest, that I can walk closely to these animals. It's okay, baby. I'm not going to hurt you. But I want to share with you. Just look around, folks. God's beauty is in absolutely everything. But to get back to the point, choose what you choose. I love you all regardless. Through my life, I have been quite the sinner. I've always known Jesus. I've always had Him in my heart. But I have flirted with demonic ideas. I have tried a whole bunch of vices to fill the void in my life. And honestly, Good, how are you? I got led astray for a long time, and I sinned so much, and I was one of the 99 that I was once the one that God was chasing after. I'm now part of the 99, and I'm cheering on. I'm gonna cry. I'm cheering on any one of you out there that might be the one that you come to embrace his love and know him, because your life changes instantly. You are filled with a love that is unmatched on this earth. For any of you that have kids, we always say your kids are a love like you'll never be able to describe to anybody that doesn't have children. Now, take that same love and look at it from God's point of view. We are all his children. He loves us that much, and a million times more. He wants all of us to come home to him, just like we want our children to come home to us. When they rebel, when they do things that we want them to make better choices, he feels the same way about us. And I will also make another thing quite clear. God never, ever, ever is there to condemn you. It is our own choices that condemn us. There are, as the Bible says, principalities, dominions, evil spirits running rampant in this world. And there are so many times people will read my posts, or they'll even be listening to this video, and they'll think that I hate them, or that I don't want to be their friend, or that I won't be there for them because of the decisions that they make in their lives. Stop right there. That is never true. That is unclean spirits lying to you. That is the devil getting a hold of you, making you believe and feel more alone and more depressed and more anxious and more angry. It's not what it's about, folks. I love every one of you. I'm here for every single one of you, no matter what your choices are. Your choices make you you, but your choices do decide who you are, just as my choices decide who I am. And I just pray that none of you ever condemn me for my choices either. As everybody wants to say, love is love, and love is the first and greatest commandment from God. And the second that Jesus said in the Bible is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. I'm not perfect. I'm a sinner. I am flawed. There are days that I am angry or cruel or judgmental. And when I am, I get on my knees and I ask forgiveness from God. And if I ever respond that way to you, believe me, I'll recognize it and I will come back and I will apologize to you. And if I don't recognize it right away, please call me out on it, because I never want to show anyone anything but love. So, to those of you who read my posts and think that I'm against you, I'm never against you. I'm always for you. I'm always cheering you on. I'm always praying for you and everything that you're going through. And of course, I'm always praying that your choices lead you to the love, to fill that hole in your life that needs to be filled, that only God's love can fill. If you held on with me this long, thank you. Agree with me, don't, please have a conversation with me. I would love that. I just want God's light and God's life, his love, to shine through me in all things. And he just wanted me to, he led me today to come tell you that. And I love you. God bless. And I'll see you out in the world.
I'll let you start.
Powerful, man. I went back looking for that video months later, at some time after she had passed, because I was recognizing at that point how impactful that video had been. you don't realize sometimes, like, when this stuff is happening, it was, what the course it's going to set you on. And like I said, the ripple effect that it's had in my life. So I'm recognizing that. And I went back and I was looking for the video and I couldn't remember the timeline, and I was trying. So I basically scrolled through her whole like Facebook. Like, I didn't, luckily I figured out for this, you could just select the videos, and I found it a lot easier today. But back then I had to go through like everything, and I'm going through all this, and I, at some point, passed it, and I recognized that, like, from her post, I could not tell a difference from when she was diagnosed with cancer or not, other than she had actually directly talked about it. Meaning, like, all her posts, like, she was praising Jesus. She was like, the personality was the same before and after, and her faith was the same before and after. Like, she had such strong faith, and I'm sure there was spiritual growth through all that, through her process. But I just thought that was beautiful, to see that didn't really, there wasn't like a swift change one way or the other.
I think one of the things that really sets for me on that is when people have that strong faith and they're going through hard times, it's not that they're being fake or they're not. They have the confidence in knowing that God's got their back.
Yeah.
God's watching over them. He's protecting them. And I know Amanda had that strength. Yeah, was she hurting? Of course. She was going through so much. But I think she always carried and knew that at every moment of the day could be a day that I could spread the word. I could do good, even in my hard times. And she makes a reference about your heart being empty when there's vices and there's, Satan's working, right? And he's trying, and you see so many times, like when people in our career go through hard times and divorces, or they're struggling, and they turn to alcohol or drugs, and they're trying to fill this hole in their heart, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to numb it, and they don't know, nothing works. And then they can't sleep. And initially, if I drink this bottle, then I can sleep. And then down the road, now it's not working. And every time you see people turn and get involved and bring God in that hole, and he fills that hole, their life changes, man. And it changes for the good. And I think that's what a man is trying to describe there when she references, going through the demonic, vices and things like that. And so I encourage people that if they're listening and they're struggling, you don't have to be a pastor to get down on your knees and pray, and there's power in prayer, right? Like people praying for us.
Absolutely.
I couldn't imagine how many people have prayed for that family and are still praying for that family, and, prayed for Amanda. And what we think should happen isn't always the way it happens, right? Like, we're praying for a miracle. We want Amanda to be sitting here right here today. But maybe the miracle is what she helped build, the legacy she left, her daughter, you, me, the organization, Chris, doing what God wants us to do, right? And I think that's the power. And her Facebook's still up, and there's multiple videos like that on her Facebook. I'm not sure who, I'm sure you could go on and see those, because I don't think it's limited. So
if it's public or not, but I might link some of the other ones in the show notes or whatever.
that's what I was thinking.
Put one of the other ones at the end, because they're powerful, man. She's preaching there. Like I said, especially now that I actually know more about what she's talking about, it's like, man, she really laid it out really well. And going back and watching that video again, it's like, man, when you learn that discernment of how God's speaking to you, and he'll speak to you through different things and different people. And like when she starts talking about the 1 and the 99 and a couple of things, I'm like, I just felt like God was speaking through her to me in that moment. And that's probably what, like I said, got me to get up and have that hope. And I also I don't want to skip over this in case people get worried or whatever. My wife is doing really well now, and she's recovered
Amen to that,
quite a
by the
bit.
way.
Yeah, and a lot of it I do think is like having that hope. Like hope is huge. I feel like it will carry you through to do the work that you need to do to get healthier, or carry you through to make the most out of, like you said, we want to hear the miracle that Amanda got healed of cancer, but having that hope squeezed the best and every last bit out of like her remaining life that she could, instead of just like wallowing in self-pity, or some, or not even some people who don't like get on the depression train. They can get on they spend so much time trying to get healed and healthy that they forget to live for those last couple months or years or whatever it is on that journey, you know.
And a big part of things for me, I'm a very outdoors person, and I've lost a lot of friends, like seeing that deer on the video. You know what I mean? There's so much, just so much of God's beauty out there, you know. And sometimes, well, you really want to gauge on to see where you're at mentally and spiritually and in your heart, go out and sit in the woods by yourself for an hour and see if you can get calm. See
Yeah.
if you can get still. Jesus went out to the mountain, try it. Like people think, oh, my life is great or this or that, and they're not having any problems, but yet they can't sit there and just be quiet and think in their own brain. And that's a huge sign. Like maybe it's time to start getting some help with some things that are bothering you or troubling you. And, and leaning on God and your faith is a great place to start. And there's, spiritual based counseling out there to help people in our line of work, you know. Um, so that spiritual component is just so important, I think, all the time, but especially during times of need and struggle. And, and then we get into our patience, you know what I mean? Like, I guess one of the big changes with me in my life, you know, after going through what I did early on and feeling numb, when I started feeling again, you know what I mean? I got back into the word, and man, when my grandmother passed away, I cried, and that's the first time I had cried in a long time. And I would just remember feeling so happy that I could feel again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we laugh, but I guarantee you, there's guys out there, people out there that are firefighters that have built this wall, and they're like, man, I know what he's talking about right now.
Yeah, I was that for a long time, and it's it's almost like it gets harder because that pressure builds up, and you build up that wall, and it gets stronger, and then at some point, for me, I had to come cracking out and crack that shell, and then it just pours out of you,
Right.
and it's such a relief.
It is.
Because you gotta feel your emotions, like, and this is we have to, in my opinion, we learn to control our emotions, but you can't suppress them.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And if you're bottling that up and you're bottling it up and it's just building and building, that's why people get so volatile, like get so angry so fast, and
Yeah.
and they don't have patience with with anyone, their kids, anyone. Maybe it's because your tank's getting so full that man, you're just trying to keep it, from overflowing and exploding.
Yeah.
And these are the signs that we need to look for our brothers and sisters when they're going through things or when they're not going through things. We don't know. Everybody's on their own walk and their own time, and we've all had ebbs and flows. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that I'm some preacher. I am not, man. But I do, just like Amanda said a million times in that video, I do love every single one, every single person, and I will do for every single person what I can do. And that's the loving heart, right? That's the caring heart. And sometimes we have patience, and man, it rings in my head a story that I want to share real quick. When I was on Rescue 12, I ran a call to a girl in a park, Turkey Lake Park. She's only 15 years old. She's living in a tent in this park. And I remember transporting her to the hospital, and my gut was like, this girl feels alone. She's scared. Pray with her, And Ernest, my partner Ernest, was up front driving, and we're going to the hospital, and I start asking her if she knows who God is, and that He's always by your side. And I start explaining it, and explaining how faith, and that no matter when you're alone and you're scared, there's God's there for you, and prayed with her. And I don't know where she's at today, but I'll never forget that call, man. And it's just, when you feel moved, you got to do.
That's something that I've been. It is a bit of a challenge in our field because, you know, we talked about this the other day at the station, and it's a subject we talked about on the podcast before, of like, you know, people call 911 because they need medical emergency services or whatever emergency services, but you're like, man, these people need to know who Christ is. So finding the way to do that, but like you said, you just feel it. I've had that once or twice where, like, dude, I'm not leaving this hospital until I get to at least talk to her about God, about Jesus. You know, how I'm going to do that, I don't know. And there's some times where I feel like it was really short, and I'm like, I wish I would have said more, but I'm like, at least I said something.
And you know, I've always asked, you know, when we run those calls, and you know, sometimes you don't know what to say to help somebody or to ease their, you know, worry. But every time I've ever asked somebody, do you mind if I pray for you for 2 weeks? You're going to be in my prayers for 2 weeks. I've never had anyone deny that, whether they're a believer or not. Like they're in, you know, it may not be what we think is the worst thing that could happen to somebody, because we've seen some pretty terrible stuff, but in their world and in their life, this might be their worst day ever. You know, and maybe it's just that little, this person wants to pray for me. Maybe you don't know how that affected them, or maybe how that got them to find God, you know? So is there more we can do? Absolutely. But don't just not do anything. As firemen, we got to do something, right? You know, if we're called to the emergency, you know, you got to do something. And sometimes a hug, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've given people hugs on calls, and loved ones who lost someone. Like, and you know, when they lose somebody and you work that code, and it doesn't work, and I mean, what's always rung a bell in my heart is, like, I was the last person that they saw before they saw God, you know? And that's always like, I know a lot of people, you know, we get on those hard calls, and it's hard to, you know, to be there for that person's last minute of life. But maybe you're there for a reason. Maybe, you know, maybe He put you there. And then when you think about it in that retrospect, like, it's not as hard to swallow those calls, because you're like, you know, He put me there because He wanted one of His soldiers.
Yeah, I believe that. And that's helped me. You know, it's kind of one of those interesting dynamics that, like, doing this job for a long time before I found my faith, I was like, I don't know how anybody with faith can do this job. Now that I have it, I don't know how anyone does it without it. You know, and I guess it's hard to explain sometimes, but what I realize is, like, over time, years of, like I said, not believing, it built up to a point where I broke, you know, because I couldn't understand. And I was trying to rationalize things. I was trying to look at things in a very pragmatic, you know, straightforward manner. Like, why is this happening? Because you do this job long enough, you've probably seen people that, like, hey, everything was perfect for this call. Like, this person coded, it was witnessed, there was bystander CPR, we were on scene in less than a minute, you know, they got early defibrillation, we got, like, everything went right. And for some reason, we didn't get him back. Or there's other situations where, like, no, this one, like, this is kind of we're going to go through the motions or whatever, and do it. We're going to do everything we can, but you kind of know, like, it's probably not going to come back. And then you get him back, you know? And it's like, man,
everything went wrong. Not our fault, but everything went wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and they survived.
By what they say, by the books, you know, like, and it's, you know, that's one of the things that I really look back on and reflect on my career going, you know what, God does have His hand in all this stuff. and Greg Love put it really well, is like, our job is to lay it out so he can play it out. We got to do our best, give him every chance of survival, but ultimately, like, it's not on us. You know, it's up to him who lives and dies, whose time it is. And like you said, you might be there for the family, you know, having somebody else who actually cares. I mean, my mom just shared with me this last like week. I had no idea my grandma passed away a couple years ago. And man, what a traumatic event that was for her. And I had no idea because she never really talked about it. We got a long drive down from Georgia and she shared the whole event. And man, like if you've never been on the other side of one of these emergency calls, like it will really change your perspective of how we act, how we do things. I mean, the nursing staff at this hospital, the doctor, it was just atrocious the way they treated her. The doctors, you know, just treating it like routine because she was old, you know, and she had a DNR and, you know, and I won't get into like all the details, but like, man, it matters to have people who care and actually like will look you in the eye and try to, you know, show some compassion that this is a human being, you know. Like, it bugs me when guys will like start IVs and do things and then they just throw trash all over the patient like they're a garbage can. And I know when we're in the midst of doing things, like, that happens. But like for me, and maybe this is a personal thing, but it's like I try to clean that stuff up, or like little things like that, and then talking to people like they're patients. So it makes a difference, being on the other side of it. I mean, you know, I say that, but I still did some of the stuff that my mom had shared with me. I was like, I don't even in my most unbelieving days, I don't think I would treat somebody like that. But that's what can happen to people. They get hardened, and it's not an excuse. But
and that's, you know, sometimes, you know, that to me, a lot of times as an officer, like if I see that or somebody floats in, like I'm very fortunate. My crew is very caring and compassionate at 3. I love them all, and I love that about them. I've never seen them treat patients bad, but we can get burnt out, right? Like I was there on Rescue 1 downtown.
Yeah.
Like we can get to that point, and that's almost like a red flag of someone to, you know, kind of pull that person to the side and communicate, right? Like everybody's so scared to communicate nowadays, and just sit down and talk. Hey man, what's going on? Like, this isn't you. Like, you're not the guy that does this kind of stuff, you know? And all of a sudden, like, and to take that time out, honestly, like, I don't believe in coincidences anymore, because God has proven that he's going to put you where he wants you. And when he puts you there to do a job or to do his work, you're supposed to do it, right? And I guess you just have to look at it and think about it for a minute and pray on it and go, you know, something's going on there. And maybe this person, like Amanda's saying on the video, is pouring things into that empty hole, and maybe that anger, and maybe by you just having that conversation, and maybe they're just unaware. Like I've realized now that there's a lot of the younger generation coming on that's just unaware that they're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
So you got to have that conversation too. You know, hey man, do you realize like we don't treat people like this or patients like this? And, you know, especially, you know, when as they're a human, they're as a believer or anyone, we should treat each other as humans, right? Not as animals, or even, I mean, I think people treat animals better than they treat humans. You know what I mean? When you run these calls, it's like, oh man, they'll call us out to save this dog. You get 800 phone calls, but this guy's over here on the curb dying and no one even cares, you know? And, but we should care, right? Like have a caring heart, like teach your young, you know, when you're mentoring someone in the fire service, hey man, let's care.
It can be easy, and this is where I try to have grace too, and not like get mad at people, because I understand what it feels like to be burnout or just be young and kind of naive or ignorant, because you come into in the fire service with a crew that, you know, doesn't have those same values, and you can fall in line with that, and when you're young and impressionable, and so trying to have a grace with that, but make people aware that like and a lot of that is just leading by example, especially when you're in an officer position, taking the time to talk to somebody like they're a human being, looking them in the eyes instead of just looking at your computer and focusing on what you're doing and like just going down the checkbook of the things you got to ask or whatever. It's like, I don't know. I think these things are really important.
Right. And it's, I mean, I just changed the way I do things at my station because of that. I had a younger firefighter, brand new firefighter, never worked before. Like, how am I going to be able to determine if he's doing the right thing or, you know, if I'm in the computer the whole time and not paying attention to what the crews are doing? So
Yeah.
sometimes it's our awareness, right? It's our awareness on our job. It's our awareness in our lives and, trying to just do better. And we're all going to fall short, and that's what's amazing about forgiveness, and I went, we go through that in life. Sometimes oh, why me, or why does this happen to me? And then you watch a video like Amanda's,
Yeah.
and then you're like, why am I even complaining?
Right.
And but it doesn't matter how big or small. He's got us, right? He's going to pull us underneath his feathers and bring us in. So don't think that just because it's a small thing you shouldn't pray or ask.
There's no problem too big for God, and there's no detail too small for him because he cares about us.
Absolutely. So back to the game on the
Yeah.
6th. I just wanted to share, it's going to be in Maitland at the Ice Den, formerly the RDV. Now it's the Genesis Ice Den.
Okay.
The game's going to be at 4 o'clock on that day. That's when the tribute would start.
Okay. 4 o'clock, September 6th.
4 o'clock, September 6th, at the Ice Den. We'll do the tribute, the game. We'll have a limited supply of shirts that we're making special for. We usually try and do a special shirt when it's one of our own that passes. So, like we did one for Jeff's tribute, we're doing one for Amanda's. And we're going to have a limited supply at the game, and we're setting up to where if someone wants to order one, we would do like a drop ship to make sure everybody that wants one can purchase one and get one.
Cool.
So if you can't make the game, you can still do that. Our website, if you're interested in who we are and our mission, is ofdhockey.com, ofdhockey.com. And that explains who we are, what we're about, what our mission is. If you'd like to help, you can make a donation there. If you can't make the game and you just want to make a donation to help this family, you can make a donation there as well.
I'll add the link in the show notes,
Perfect.
so guys can check there for that. And you guys do a lot of awesome things. I mean, way more than just a hockey team, like we've talked about already a lot. But I really believe in what you guys are doing, and like I said, it's been an inspiration to us. So if anybody out there is just feeling it on their heart that they want to help a good cause, the OFD hockey. The Orlando Firefighter Hockey Club is definitely one that's doing good things.
And if you're a firefighter, you know what I mean, and you feel like you don't have anywhere to belong, obviously reach out to Faith in the Firehouse. If you want to get on the ice, it doesn't matter your skill level.
Yeah, and I was going to say it's not all just Orlando guys on the team.
We have a lot of Orange County. There's been a recent merger with Orange County coming in, and they were part of us years ago, and then they established their own 501, and now we're back to one organization because they like what we're doing, and there's power in numbers, right? Like we can do more good when we have more soldiers, and we have guys from Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Brevard. So no matter where you work at, we'll leave my phone number on the link too.
Cool.
If you're interested and you're just like, hey, this is something I might want to try, contact me. We have extra gear. We have a locker or a storage unit that we have all guys get new gear. They donate their old gear, and just for that, so we can get guys to come out. And we've got a brand new guy out there right now who's, 1 year, not even a 1 year fireman at Orlando. And he's giving it its all, man. And it's so much fun. And
that's awesome,
the other day, his roommate says, he said you were yelling at him. I was like, he needs to understand, like, when we're on the ice, everyone's yelling. It's so loud on that ice. You're not going to hear me sticks slapping, pucks hitting glass. You're not going to hear a word I say unless we're yelling. So, and that's just that younger generation compared to our generation. It's like, no, that's the way it is on the ice, man. So, prepare to be yelled at and
That's right.
motivated.
Yeah. It is motivating, man. It's motivating sometimes.
Well, I appreciate what you're doing, man.
Thank you,
It's
man.
inspiring to me. And, just keep up the good work, man.
I appreciate hearing that,
If you ever
man.
need anything from our organization or any help, we're always here too.
You've already been a huge help, man. And we're going to talk as we get things a little more organized with Faith in the Firehouse, man. Yeah.
And I just want to thank, my girlfriend. She's always a big supporter. Our family's sacrificed so much, and then the guys on the board, man. We always got to remember our network and our guys. And I'm nothing in this organization without those players and without the guys on that board. So I just want to say, the Dennis, Phil, Asher, Josh, thank you guys for what you've done for the organization too. And, they're doing the hard work. This is the easy stuff, the passion, the love for it. And that's what'll drive you in the inside circle of your, Faith in the Firehouse is that passion, man. You got to have somebody with that fire and that passion. And you do, man. And that's what, and just like I have the passion with, what we do in our mission. And that's what it takes, because when you speak about your organization and what you're about, it's different than somebody from the outside. You could never hire somebody to come into your organization and have the heart and the fire for it that you got for it, because that's built from Amanda and the people that got you there. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you, man.
I'm glad you made it out, man. Honestly, I wanted to do this podcast honoring her a long time ago. I didn't feel like the time was right. We talked about some of that, and I was actually looking back on, because we just hit a year with Faith in the Firehouse, and it's been almost a year since Amanda passed away. And I remember the first couple episodes thinking, like, man, I would like to hear what she's got to say and all this. And I didn't have the courage to ask, because I knew she was going through stuff. I had no idea how close she was to the end at that point. But yeah, I'm really happy that we finally got to really honor her, and it won't be the last time she's mentioned here. And it's definitely one of those personal missions to make sure that she's not forgotten, because her faith was beautiful to watch and learn from and grow from. She was, she had that unwavering faith, like I said, for, like, you go back through the history of on her Facebook, before and after being diagnosed with cancer, it was unwavering. Some combination of just like faith through the trials, like Job and the Apostle Paul, like all in one, so.
Yeah. Can't wait for that meeting one day again,
Yeah.
What's she going to say to me and you,
Yeah.
These two guys, I never would have thought,
Yeah.
And it's just, but
yeah.
We love her, man. We miss her.
Absolutely.
So we will carry on the legacy, man.
I sure will, and do my best. So,
all right, brother.
With that, I'll close this with prayer. Heavenly Father, Lord, I thank you for this day. Thank you for the opportunity to sit here with my brother in Christ and talk about Amanda, and just so thankful that she crossed my path, Lord. I'm thankful that she was a part of just your mission and the missions that you have made for me, and I'm just so thankful for all the way this stuff has worked out, Lord. And I pray that her memory never is forgotten. And I pray that many are inspired by her faith, and many, many, many more come to know Christ because of her. And I pray that this podcast reaches the ears of those who need to hear it, and whoever is has that turmoil inside them, trying to find something to fill the void in their heart. Father, I pray that this podcast or the memory of Amanda, or through the hockey tournament, Lord, it would just open their heart, soften their heart to seek you to fill that void. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.